Before we begin, I have a shout out that may kill me. Um, this is a Japanese tongue twister, and whatever is about to come out of my mouth to anyone who speaks Japanese who might actually watch this video, I am sorry. I am deeply sorry. I'm just reading and just trying to cope with what I'm about to do. So before we begin, thank you very much to Jugemu Goko no Surikuri Kaijari Suigyo no Suigyo Matsu Unrai Matsu Furai Matsu Kunero Tokoro ni Sumu Tokoro Yabu Rai Koji for joining the Patreon campaign. That's half of the full tongue twister, by the way. It's a famous one in Japan. I tried. I was going to cheat and have like a text to speech attempt it, and then just play the audio into the microphone. That's cheating. That's cheating. Whoever you are, who I'm going to call Jugamu for now. Yeah, you paid to hear me stumble through that, didn't you? Well, thank you for the contribution. Thank you for supporting the channel. They have a request as well that will be due, and it's far more sane than the shout out. So today is one of those videos that kind of went from one idea and evolved into another idea entirely. The goal was to basically just see who from the live action, or at least any of the big movie Transformer characters are left to do for studio series. But the more I looked and the more I did my research, I kind of stared at everything going like, is there a point to this anymore? Like, studio series at this point has very much like lived out its usefulness as a toy line for its original intent. So the idea in studio series was, let's do movie formers no matter what we're doing in the main line, no matter what movies coming out, no matter what cartoons on the air. We're just going to do one line that's devoted to doing the Bayverse stuff, the stuff that was making us, millions of dollars hand over fist. And that makes sense, because why leave those characters untapped when there's demand, especially considering all of them previously came out across different toy lines that had different budgets and different standards. This is one line where everything was going to scale, everything was going to be designed in a similar way. But the line has gone on for 10 years now, and there are definitely signs that newer figures released are definitely showing their struggles a lot more than the original toys. As is usual, engineering improves over time, but size changes, level of paint changes, little budgetary things start happening. And at this point, I genuinely wonder what is left. So, for instance, humor me with this. I'm going to take a look at this 2027 Studio Series leaked listings just before we get into the rest of my findings here. So, this is exciting for me because there's a lot of characters on here that I do want to see. But, frankly, almost none of them have to do with anything live-action movie. So, for instance, we're getting another run of the Alicon. We're getting a cartoon-accurate Wheelie. We're getting another Red Alert, even though he wasn't in the movie. There's a TF1 Shockwave on the way, but, like, in this initial list, none of these, outside of the Jazz, come from any live-action movies. And the Jazz brings up another interesting point. So this leaked list, remember, this is for the 2027 toys, so you see Ironhide and Ratchet on there as well. We are getting anniversary figures of the first movie cast, which makes sense. So they're going back and they are doing the original Studio Series toys all over again. They're not reissues or anything, because we see like Ratchet moved up to the Deluxe class, or the Voyager class. So we're getting brand new stuff, but mixed in, it's really just kind of smattered in with what is a lot of Studio Series 86 stuff. So like Swoop, Sleep Optimus Prime will become a thing. And then the stuff that was like kind of exciting to me, which is the introduction of comic book studio series. So IDW Nautica is in here. IDW Drift is in here. We have IDW Fortress Maximus and Marvel Soundwave. You know, finally I'm going to get that purple Soundwave I've been asking for forever. This is the kind of stuff that studio series seems to be leaning toward, and you can see very, very little as far as live action movie characters. So I got to just like thinking about this. We have so few left that like really the line served its purpose. Like if we go back and go to my original premise of who is left from the live action movies that has not gotten any kind of toy. And it's frankly, it's a short list and kind of a sad list. So if we take stuff of named characters who actually had some level of screen time to the point where you might go, I want them in my collection, not just random background Decepticons, not just little plot device things like Alice and Reed Man. No, things like this, like Nitro Zeus. I mean, people liked Nitro Zeus, I think, for how outlandish he was personality-wise, but also kind of a cool design for a live-action movie. He's reusing Shockwave's head, but then again, he's not the first one to do that. But everything else seems fresh and new, and like that is one that I could absolutely see getting a studio series, and I kind of stare and like, wow, there's nothing in 2026 or 2027 that actually indicates that that's happening. That's weird, because it's like it's literally like the only Decepticon from that movie anyone cares about. We're getting the Megatron, we got the Mohawk, we still don't have the Nitro Zeus. You could technically do Berserker, Dreadbot, you know, the rest of the crew that got let out on Megatron's orders, but they're all retools, not even retools, like they're barely remodeled versions of like previous characters. You know, Onslaught is just long haul. I don't even think they really changed his color scheme much. He's just long haul, but in different vehicle mode. And that's not interesting anymore. Like that's nah. But I kind of got to looking like what else is left? Like what? Canopy. I mean, Canopy is a named character, so like I guess, you know, like okay, it might be sympathetic trying to protect a girl and got killed for it. Day Trader. Day Trader, I'm kind of shocked. Like, Day Trader is one of those where, like, what? How are you actually going to adapt that? Hasbro's doing everything they can to not have to paint their toys or do too heavy detail on them. And then you come up with a character like Day Trader. But that's the thing. He is named. He has a decent amount of screen time. He's a unique design. He has voice roles. Like, everything in this should have said, this guy is getting a toy. I don't know how it's going to work, but he's going to get a toy. Never got one at all, which is weird. But then you have to go to things like Dragonstorm. And that's cool. Like, we could do a dragon again, I guess. You know, like you'd have to probably bump it up to Commander to get more than just 2 robots out of it. You know, like, that was kind of lame, right? Like, we got that Dragonstorm toy, and the toy itself on its own is okay, but like as a representation of what it did in the movie, it's a little bit cheap, right? It's a little bit cheap. I mean, it's sticking to the same movie in a very, actually kind of the same premise. What, Infernicus? Are you going to do a studio series Infernicus? One, that name is still horrible. Infernicus. That's such an awkward name. I still hate saying that name. But, like, are you really going to do another one of those? I don't think you are. I would not expect someone to do it. In the movie, he's just some big snarling, like, lava monster-looking guy. It's not eventful. It's not really memorable. You know, like, there's so many that you could do in studio series that are literally just things to fill up screen space or for Autobots to shoot or cut down. And that's literally the only reason they exist. And Infernicus absolutely falls into that territory. And that just falls into like everyone else that is potential and possible. That is basically just a list of like, who cares? It's a who's who of who cares at that point. You've got Dispensor, which, someone would be amused by. And at this point, you probably could get a license from Mountain Dew to make it properly. But like, where you're gonna do the Xbox Transformer? Are you gonna do Reed Man, who's physically impossible? Really, the list really is that thin at this point. Studio Series, in its original goal, has managed to do basically the entirety of the big blockbuster movie cast at this point across literally every iteration of said movies. And you have extremely little left. Like, here's your biggest names that do not have Studio Series toys at all. You have Stratosphere. Good luck getting Stratosphere as a toy at this point. He would have to be not even Commander, because even Commander would be too small. He'd have to be like modern Titan. But one, he doesn't have enough screen time or plot usefulness in order to actually justify being a Titan. But also, the Titans are still locked down for the next 4 years by the Dinobots. You're not going to see him getting a toy anytime soon. By the time he does, by the time they finally decide we're doing a Stratosphere as a Titan, your Titans are probably going to be like smaller than they are now, and probably up to like $250. And like, you really want to pay that kind of cash for him just to fill a gap in your collection? I guess people are still asking for animated Omega Supreme after all these years, so I guess there'd be some people who would still have a demand for it. Squeaks has still not had a Studio Series toy. Now, Squeaks actually does fit the size range of like Core Class would have been perfect. I have no idea how you would get him to transform into a scooter at a Core Class size and budget, but it does hold true. He is a named Transformer that had some level of like importance in the movie and had decent amount of screen time. He was supposed to be this cute little like Wall-E-esque, just like junker kind of bot, that just kind of like palled around with the human of the movie. It was supposed to be cute and endearing. I think it just kind of came off a little bit weird is all. It was supposed to come across like Wall-E. I think it came across more like bot, if I'm being completely honest. I think your biggest character, honestly, the biggest character who's never been in Studio Series, is Frenzy. This is something you could have done in Core Class, like a little stereo that unfolded into Frenzy. Like, it would have been tricky, but probably could have been possible in some way. This is weird, right? So Frenzy had a lot of screen time in the first movie, like he's the main threat for the human cast. And in that, he definitely deserved to have some kind of figure. What you're looking at on screen right now is his fast action battler, like literally the only independent Frenzy you got. Typically, he would be like a Soundwave-esque minion to Barricade, which he really only got to be for like the original Deluxe and the Human Alliance toy. And everything after that, you've completely separated the two. So he's not even an accessory with another character. That was the big thing. There are other names in here that would have been a little bit weird. Scalpel, but he's way too small. Insecticon, which is way too small. Other names like Brains. Like Brains and Wheelie. They have minifigures. They have minifigures that I believe came with the Studio Series Shockwave. So they do technically have Studio Series toys that scale with the rest of the line, at least as close as they can come to scaling. You never get one that transforms, because if they're trying to hold to any level of scale, way too small. Way too small. But that's kind of all you're left with. Like, that's it. Like, literally every other big character has been done, except for these guys, but we don't care. Seriously, like, how thin are your options? Like, how bad is it? How bad is it when Studio Series is now moving into the Generations realm of, we're just going to redo characters we've already done before you ever get to see these two with new toys? That is how badly the fandom looks upon these characters, and I feel like Hasbro is holding off, hoping time heals all wounds, but we still hate these two. we still do not want new toys of these two, and they're very aware of it. This is not a time heals all wounds. This is ignore they ever existed and move on with your life. I don't know. Third party will do it at some point. Maybe a third party does it at some point. But no, like, we're in this area where, like, if we go back and close that off again, and we'll just kind of look through everything else going on. Like, more leaked listings for this stuff. So, like, more, like A6 Cyclonus. We do have some live action variations. So we have movie 4 Optimus on the way. Okay. There's a movie 5 Megatron in there as well. Movie 4 Bumblebee. And little bits of, like, whoever's left from Transformers 1. But given the box office returns from Transformers 1, I don't think they're going to do the extended cast on that one. I think you're going to get everyone who has a viable vehicle mode, and I think they're going to leave it off at that. But everything else is really just leftover stuff, or it's going into other toy lines. Like, when I look at this, right? When I look at this listing, and I see, like, comic book Soundwave, Fort IDW Fort Max, 80, like, there's an 86 Wheeljack on the way, 86 Cyclonus, 86 Blitzwing. Some of these we've already seen. This is a little bit older. We even go back to the first list. See, like, IDW Nautica, Devastation Goldfire. I kind of wonder to myself, why can't this just be in the Generations line? Like, Generations is already having this weird thing where we were promised that they would actually be doing one less wave a year, but in exchange for that, we wouldn't be getting package refreshes anymore. Well, that was kind of a lie, right? Because we've already gotten several reissues and package refreshes in the current run of Generations. And also, I think the one less wave a year also went out the window because we're getting an extra wave of Age of the Primes. So it's kind of just business as usual in Generations. But I feel like what we're getting in Studio Series really does not justify existing. Like, there's part of me that kind of misses just having one big maxi line for Transformers, where, like, it's all just one toy line. I feel like so much of this, like, especially Gamer Edition and comic book characters were originally in Generations. We had Highbrow, we had who else? We had Highbrow, we had Swerve, we had Tailgate. We had these characters. We had Ultra Magnus, and it's all comic book based in the Generations line. We had the movie based characters. Like, the movie characters kicked off the modern Generations toy line not the movie, the video game characters. I'm getting ahead of myself. But, like, War for Cybertron toys kicked off the modern iteration of Generations in the first place, and now they're relegated to Studio Series, essentially to just keep that brand alive. But if we don't have movie characters left to do, then why are we still trying to force it into, like, the same mold? It's round shaped square hole at this point, where we're so far departed from the original goal of Studio Series, there really isn't anything left to do. And there really isn't any reason why it needs to be its own line, or why this line needs to exist again. Keep in mind, there's also a factor of, would this have come out better if someone else was handling it? Because the Studio Series team and the Generations team are not necessarily the same teams or the same people. So things like the Gamer Edition stuff. And I look at that and I go, would that have been better if the Generations team was handling it? Because I kind of feel like it would have. Maybe the same designers at Takara would have been handling it, but I kind of feel like there's been a lot of product lately that's been kind of meh. But if you're working with, like, if you're putting the right designers and the right team with the right product, you might have gotten a better result, rather than kind of forcing this team that's always been doing this particular thing to now change gears and do this instead. And that feels like where you get the disconnect with Gamer Edition. So I'm kind of wondering how much of a factor that would have played. It's all basically just asking why Studio Series still exists when its original intent seems to be complete, when you seem to have done everything that line could have possibly done under its original tone. If you really do want two competing Transformer toy lines at the same time, you can still separate them out. But I feel like at this point, the line needs a refresh of some kind. I hate how homogenized Transformers are right now. You know, everything's in the same style of packaging now. Everything is roughly the same size and same detail. And on one hand, it's cool that everything kind of works and plays along with each other. But on the other hand, it's different branding for the same product. It's weird. It's weird. And I feel like it weakens things in the end. I am okay at this point of sunsetting Studio Series. I don't really see a reason why it still exists when it's so far departed from its original purpose. And you could do all of these things under a brand new overarching Transformer line that would cover all of this extended stuff that isn't necessarily covered under the Studio Series blanket. We just kind of pretend because a studio was involved. Technically, all of your Transformers have design studios involved in them. You don't necessarily need to label it as such, though. So that's the thought of the day. I'm trying to figure out what the point of Studio Series is at this point, because it really just feels disjointed, you know? Like, the new one, like the latest one, is that we are getting... The latest rumor here on Memory Mills, we're getting Sunstorm from Dreamwave. Ugh. I've been talking a lot. Dreamwave. And that's, granted, this is the version I want. I want this Sunstorm. Why is it Studio Series? It doesn't fit at all. But that's just kind of like where my head is at the moment. Like, trying to figure out the point. Trying to figure out the purpose. And would it be better? There's your comment topic for the week. For the day. For however long you talk about it. Would Studio Series be better if the current product that's coming out shifts gears and becomes a new toy line? Like, I feel like with a brand new round of the 07 movie characters on the way, I kind of felt like this would have been a great time to just refresh the entire thing under a brand new banner and make it feel like there's something fresh and new coming, rather than just, you know, wave what? We're up to like 38, 39, however many waves the Studio Series are out at this point. I don't know. Let me know in the comment section below where your thoughts are on the current state of Studio Series. Do you like that it's gone into just like whatever Hasbro wants under the flimsiest of excuses? We can put an 86 Red Alert into the line. He was in the storyboard for the movie. Or would you rather they just kind of drop the pretense of the studio and just come up with something fresh? Similar product. Doesn't have to change that, but just something that feels new. Something that gives it new life. So let me know in the comment section below. And as always, I will see you next time.
Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a Tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.